is that lady? Uh, Hi, everyone. Welcome. Sorry, I'm totally distracted right now because babies do that for me. Welcome to Spark Reynolds Facebook Live and podcast. And say hi to Millie. Hi,
Millie, say hi
Millie.
to everybody. Millie says
Hi.
hi.
And
This is going to be a very informal podcast and Facebook Live.
yes,
Much less, not that they're normally formal, but today is going to
serious.
be exceptionally informal. I am just out of quarantine from having COVID, so I'm still working at home one last day. Hence Millie in my lap. So now we're keeping this one pretty friendly and
Pretty
informal today.
friendly. So Millie might even have some suggestions, and you
That's
let us
right.
know where you're coming in from. Um, Ironically, talking about how relaxed things are, last week Brian was not on because he was sick, and technology took me away. So I think I heard I froze up in the middle of the whole thing with my mouth open. So
Always, the freeze frame is always like the most awkward possible face, right?
it really is. Um, so last week, we'll probably do again at another time, but this week, we're going to go over, and we get this question a lot in a lot of Facebook groups and other social media, which is, how do we know when we should sell a property? And Brian is going to take us through that. And please know there's no exact science. A lot of this is based on circumstances and speculation. So with that, Brian, let's talk about timing the market.
Well, right. So there's one thing you need to know about timing the market, and that's don't do it. I mean, it's that simple. Like, don't try to time the market. It goes for stocks. It goes for real estate. It goes for bonds. It goes for anything that is sold on market pricing. Do not try to time the market. It leads to irrational and emotional investing decisions, which is never how you want to operate as an investor.
Right.
And look, housing markets are unpredictable. Stock markets are unpredictable. You don't know whether tomorrow's price is going to be lower or higher than today's. So in the
COVID
absence,
showed us that. In my area anyway, COVID is, we have a housing shortage. Like, there's not enough homes. And they're going for crazy, ridiculous prices. So who would have thought that during this time,
yeah, during the beginning of the pandemic, people were worried that housing was going to crash in value, right? I mean, everyone was worried about rampant unemployment rates, and for a little while, unemployment was just like skyrocketing every week, and it didn't happen. Home prices are up almost 10% year over year around the country. So, and in some markets, they're up like 40%. I mean, we did an interactive map on our website a month or so back about the fastest appreciating home market property markets in the U.S. And they were like between 25 and 40% year over year jumps in home prices. It's crazy.
It is.
So the point being, you just don't know what's going to happen tomorrow with housing markets or with any market. So don't try to time the market.
Unless you're Millie. Millie can time the market. She's very smart.
Millie thinks she can do anything. But even economists can't predict recessions, corrections, vast unemployment. Even they can't predict that very accurately. And if they can't do it, you can't do it. So that's rule number one. Don't try to time the market.
What are some other factors in all of this?
Well, so one factor that's worth considering is your age, and not just your age, but your what we call retirement horizon, which is the amount of time between now and when you plan to retire. Because the closer you get to retirement, and once you reach retirement, your risk tolerance gets lower and lower. So that could go either way with your rental properties, right? I mean, depending on your experience as a landlord and your individual property performance, your properties could be extremely low risk, or they could be much higher risk. But what your goal needs to be as you approach retirement is reducing risk. So that could mean selling your rental properties and going into bonds, or it could mean moving money from your stock portfolio into rental properties, into paying off your mortgages, right? So there's no exact right answer for what you should do, other than the correct goal of reducing your risk as you approach retirement. So, speaking of which, your asset allocation should be changing, right? As part of reducing your risk exposure as you near retirement. So you want to think about how would selling a property change your asset allocation? If you sold a property, would you get closer or further away from your target asset allocation? And by asset allocation, we simply mean the percentages of your portfolio that are made up by different asset types. So stocks, real estate, bonds, crypto, even nowadays. And then within each of those umbrella categories, within stocks, how much of that is in large cap stocks, U.S. stocks, international stocks, emerging market stocks, right? So,
well, do you think that overall real estate investors tend to stay in real estate and not diversify like they should?
Yeah, I see that all the time. So I'm a columnist at Bigger Pockets, and over there, people are really gung ho about real estate investing, and a lot of them say, "Why should I bother investing in stocks? When I earn such reliably high returns in real estate?" And there are a lot of answers to that question. That's I don't want to stray too far off topic here, but one of those reasons is liquidity. You can liquidate stocks instantly. You cannot liquidate real estate instantly. So,
Right.
if you need no other reason than that one, that's a really simple and easy one. But, if you're thinking about selling a property, you do need to think about how it will impact your asset allocation. And is it going to take you further away from your target asset allocation or closer to it? So keep that in mind. And, there's something that says you can't sell one property and buy another, right? You can do something like a 1031 exchange to move your profits from one property into another. And if you're new to the idea of 1031 exchanges, we'll send you a quick link to where you can learn more about that. But you avoid capital gains taxes on selling that one property. Now, another factor to consider in this decision is inflation and whether you're worried about inflation or not. Rentals are a great hedge against inflation because rents rise along with inflation. Not only do they rise along with inflation, but rents are one of the primary drivers of inflation. So,
and make sure that you are increasing rents, because so often people don't do that.
Every year, like clockwork, you need to increase your rents, even if it's just by 2%. But you want to set expectations for your tenants that rents will go up, and you want to keep pace with market rents. But so the point here is that if you are worried about inflation, if it's keeping you up at night, then you may not want to sell your rentals. You may want to keep your money in the rentals because they are a good hedge against inflation. Now, you should keep in mind that this is an emotional factor. This is not a mathematical factor because, again, you can't predict inflation, right?
Right.
You don't know when or if inflation is, or you don't know how inflation is going to move, how high it's going to be, how fast it's going to go. So this is a sleep well at night kind of factor, not an exact science of predicting inflation because you can't predict it. But if you're worried about inflation, then keep your money in rentals. All right, here's another quick and easy one is your cash flow positive and growing? If you have negative cash flow on a property, get rid of it. I mean, it's that simple. Like, you don't want to, if something of yours loses money every month, it's a liability, not an asset. So don't keep it.
Right. Absolutely.
You also, and you want to look at, is your cash flow growing? I mean, your cash flow may not be very strong right now, but if it's growing very quickly, then maybe it is worth keeping. But if you have low cash flow and it's not really growing very fast, then
Millie is very exact on that. She's like, yes.
Yeah, she's emphatically stating that cash flow matters. But yeah, if your cash flow is not performing for you the way that you need it to or want it to, then sell the property, either put them in stocks or buy another property, do a 1031 exchange. But you want your money to be performing for you. And on that note, you need to look at the opportunity cost of not selling, of leaving your money tied up in rental properties. Because
now, what about maybe taking a long term to short term? I know we just discussed that not long ago with Al, and I'm wondering if that's something that somebody could look into, just to see if that's something they can make a negative cash flow into a positive.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can definitely change the use of your property and potentially earn higher returns that way. Convert it to a vacation rental on Airbnb. You could convert it to a corporate rental, like Al typically a spouse's. So that is one way to change your cash flow. You can also you can raise the rents, right? I mean, you can improve your cash flow that way. So yeah, if your cash flow is not where you want it to be, you can potentially raise it without selling the property. But you do have money tied up in this property, right? So that means that there's an opportunity cost of leaving that money there rather than investing it in a higher returning, higher yielding investment if you're not earning very good cash flow on your rental. So here's a really quick example of that. The average historical return on the S&P 500 is around 10%. Go back to the 20s. So if you, and that, by the way, that includes both growth in prices and dividends. So it includes both the ongoing income and the appreciation. So if your rental property is not producing 10% in combined yields, income yield and annual appreciation, then maybe it's not a very good investment. So if you're earning 7% cash on cash return as far as your cash flow, your yield, and you're earning around 3% annual appreciation, then that puts you at around 10% total returns annually for that property, which is fine. It's great. If you're earning 3% combined returns every year on that property, you should probably put your money somewhere else, because there's an opportunity cost of leaving it tied up in a badly performing investment. Now, as one final note here, taxes are a factor too. Real estate does come with many tax advantages, but that by itself is not a good enough reason to sell or hold on to a property. If that's your only reason for selling, you should probably keep your property.
Yeah.
But depreciation can help you reduce your taxable rental income and help you pay less money in taxes on that income. So, and rental property come with all kinds of other tax advantages as well. It's not just depreciation, but most of those other tax advantages are just costs. They're just business operating expenses. So,
yeah, it's definitely not the reason to hold on or sell a property.
Yeah, so it's something to keep in mind, but the taxes alone, too many real estate investors overstate the value of the tax benefits of real estate. They exist, but they're not the be all end all, and they certainly shouldn't be the reason that you hold or sell a property.
Right.
So, someone's getting a little fussy here. So she is gonna go to her mother.
See that? That's how it happens.
That's right. There you go.
Kids get fussy and they're thrown to the mom.
That's right. Yeah, it's good. It's good being a dad. It's good being a man. So anyway, on that note, if you are interested in some further reading, if you're interested in selling a property, we do have a couple resources here. One is an overview of capital gains taxes on when you sell rental properties and how to avoid, more specifically, how to avoid capital gains taxes when you sell properties. Christina Cohen says, "Cute baby." I appreciate that, Christina.
She was talking about Millie, not you.
Yeah, har. Where are we here? All right. So the other issue here is, if you don't know your exact cash flow, run the numbers. If you want to see how your property is performing yield-wise, and cash on cash return, run it through our free rental cash flow calculator. So we'll put a link to that in the comments as well.
And it takes like a few minutes, so it's
if that
can't hurt.
You can do it in seconds. So, all right, Deni, is there anything else you want to go over before we call this episode complete?
No, I think you covered it pretty good.
Yeah. So just as a quick summary, if you're thinking about selling a rental property, a few things to consider. Don't try to time the market. It never works out the way you want it to. Keep in mind your retirement horizon, because the closer you get to retirement, lower your risk tolerance.
Right.
Keep in mind how selling a property would affect your asset allocation. If you were to sell the property, would you get further away or closer to your target asset allocation? Inflation. Are you worried about inflation? Is it keeping you up at night? If so, consider keeping your property because rentals are a good hedge against inflation. Cash flow, is it positive? Is it growing? Do you feel good about it? If not, maybe it's time to sell the property. And then there's the opportunity cost of not selling the property. The money you have tied up in that property could be earning you a higher return somewhere else. Maybe, or maybe not. Maybe you're earning a way better return with your rental property than you would in other investments. And then finally, our taxes, tax implications. There are tax advantages to holding rental properties, and then there are, of course, capital gains taxes due when you go to sell property or to sell rental properties. So on that note, we're going to call it an episode, and we'll see you guys next Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific.
If you have any subjects you want covered, send our way. We are ready.
As we always say, this is about you guys. It's not about us. So, we want to talk about what you want to hear about. Otherwise, it's just the two of us sitting up here and talking at each other. So.
And Millie.
And Millie. All right, guys. Have a wonderful week and stay in touch. Let us know what we can do to help. We'll see you next Tuesday.
Bye-bye.